And maybe an hour later, from the National Bank, the letter came, and they said they wanted us to work on this project. And she said, "You got a job, and just when can you start?" Yeah.
Hi everybody, we're back with another interview with one of the 10,000 Changemakers, and today we're talking to Armand, who has had a long and distinguished career in making it more simple to find the investment opportunities that are actually good for our planet. That's a huge, powerful good that we have access to, that we can all contribute to. We can vote with where we put our monies. If you're watching this and if you like some of this, what we're talking about, put a like on this video or put a comment down, because it really helps bring this content out to more people that can be inspired. My name is Mads Damgaard. I'm the founder of the 10,000 Changemakers, and I'm an Ericsson professional coach. And these kinds of interviews that I'm doing here are to show all of the amazing people that are doing something meaningful while making a good living. And I'm so excited to be talking to you, Armand, because I'm so inspired by what you've kind of dedicated yourself to. And why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. Mads, thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be on this show with your great initiative, 10,000 Changemakers. My name is Armand Colard. I am based here in Vienna, and I've been working in the field of sustainable finance for some time now. I guess about 16 years now. But maybe to tell you where the journey started and how I came to do what I'm doing right now, I thought I might tell you that actually I, as a biologist, by education, I started becoming interested into the world of investments quite early. Yeah? So around 2000, I started my first job in a bank, in a classical bank, managing assets for private clients, for high net worth individuals, but also institutional clients. It showed me that that wasn't really where I wanted to be. I learned a lot about the basics, about all the how assets are managed, and also about strange things like special purpose vehicles and asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities, stuff that blew up a few years later. If you think of the subprime crisis, for instance. Yeah? In the retrospective, I saw that what we were doing at that time, not all of it, but parts of it, wasn't sustainable even in the economic sense, and far from being sustainable in the environmental or social sense. So this was a huge learning for me. After 3 years, it was a part-time job at the time because I was still in my studies at the university. I went back to the university, finished my studies, and worked as a scientific researcher. But then I realized I would like to basically combine the world of economics or banking specifically with what I was what was taught to me as an ecologist. So this was basically trying to connect two worlds. I started going into the direction of environmental economics with my studies, the second part of my studies. So I had a little bit of economics there, but more the sustainable side of economics, or the environmental side. And in 2015, I was due for my civil service in Austria. Civil service is the substitute for military service if you don't want to carry a weapon. So I heard of an opportunity with an NGO called WWF. I mean, it's a huge environmental NGO, with the panda logo.
Yeah. I think everybody knows that. Yeah.
And they were, at the time in Austria, they were looking for a civil servant in the field of corporate relations, corporate partnerships. Yeah. And so when I was interviewed for this job as a civil servant, they asked, so what can you bring to the team? And I was like, I'm interested in the banking sector, in the finance sector. And they were like, okay, perfect. You got the job because that's the only sector we haven't had any corporations with, because we don't have a clue how it works. And your job is going to be to try to make partnerships in this field. I had the vision. Of course, after the civil service, I wanted a job. And as a biologist, you don't get like jobs so easily. Yeah. So my plan was to try to write concepts that have a value for WWF and the community and civil society, but also could maybe bring me a job. Mm-hmm. And so basically, I worked on two concepts. One was called monetary energy footprint analysis at the time, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a proposal we gave to the National Bank in Austria. And the second thing was I wanted to make a really strict ecological fund, a green tech fund. Yeah. And so at the end of my civil service, both were finished, like both proposals were finished, and one was going to a big retail bank, waiting for feedback. The other one went to the National Bank. And 1 or 2 months after the end of my civil service, the CEO of WWF Austria calls me and says, Armand, both proposals have materialized. When can you start? Yeah. So that was the beginning of my regular work for WWF, and I stayed there for 10 years. And the journey goes like this. I started with this eco-fund project, basically. This fund became really big and had a lot of impact in Austria, and it still exists.
So was this, did you set up a green fund from your WWF position in combination with Erste Bank or with the National Bank?
Yeah, with Erste Bank.
Yeah.
With this huge retail bank in Austria. We wanted to just put in the real green stars, companies that are really bringing the transition forward towards, at the time it was 2-degree scenario. Now we're talking about 1.5 degrees. Yeah. And so it was fossil free from the beginning. It was nuclear free. It was weapons free, and didn't have any even banks in there. So it was really a very strict fund. And part of the money would go to projects on the field from WWF. Parts of the fee they would get, and the rest would go into really impactful companies, which where the fund manager would invest into them. So this was really a great product. You could say something like a fair trade or organic product in the supermarket. We had the equivalent in the financial sector. But you see, then we saw from this one fund became 2 funds, but it was still only 2 funds from 2,000 funds in Austria. Yeah? So we saw that we weren't moving fast enough to really be impactful in the wider sense. Yeah? I mean, this one product was great and it's still great, but it wasn't changing the investment behavior of the country or of the sector. So the next thing we did a couple of years later was we were looking for first movers in the financial sector who were willing to change their entire investment behavior, not just one fund, but basically all assets under management. And the company that did this and is still doing it here in Austria is insurance company Allianz. So Allianz said, we are managing 6 billion euros of assets. And they said they want a concept that will change these 6 billion euros assets under management over the course of time towards a more sustainable portfolio, basically. What we did was we got together 40 organizations, around 70 experts, and 2 years we sat together in workshops and discussed what are the factors, the indicators, how can we take the portfolio and start measuring very strictly these indicators. So we built an ESG model measuring environmental, social, and governance aspects. Today, if you say ESG, or my company is called ESG Plus, everybody who knows a little bit about the financial sector knows ESG is related to sustainability, to measuring sustainability. At the time, this was new. And so when this model was finished, and it took a couple of years, we got Allianz to commit to really have goals set. For instance, back in 2014, when this started becoming operational, they said, okay, we're eliminating all, and for all times, all coal investments within our portfolio. So this happened in the first year. 2015, they eliminated coal as the first insurance company in Austria, and I think one of the first even worldwide. And the next step was they wanted to double the share of their renewable energy within their energy portfolio. Back then, they had maybe 11 or 12%, up to at least 24% in the first step. Actually, after a couple of years, they hit the 30% mark. And now they're even above. So this is really transitioning towards a 1.5-degree portfolio.
Is this what happened with CLEANVEST, or is this still the portfolio that started with WWF?
When the model was finished, me and my team, we made a spin-off from WWF into ESG+.
Yes.
So this is the moment when I founded this social enterprise called ESG+, that would then take the model and spread it in the sector. Allianz is the one that gives us the portfolio. We are the ones who analyze the portfolio and do the measurements of the commitments.
Yeah.
And this was the first project we had as ESG+, basically. Yeah? And once we founded ESG+, the vision was still the same as in WWF. This vision was we want to bring transparency into the financial sector, into financial products, into portfolios, as a first step in order to change the investment behavior towards a more sustainable, climate-friendly, socially friendly portfolio. Of course, it takes 5 to 10 years to get there, but they're really turning around.
It's something that we don't really think about. We don't really kind of necessarily like to think about it unless the markets are going great. But if we do put a little thought into it and choose the providers that when we put that money in and just keep reinvesting it through a good strategy, it can have a huge impact. The money is working 24/7 to build the world that we want to see. Now, I love that whole journey that you've been on. And one of the things that just stood out to me, and I probably also you guys that are listening here probably would like when you started out, you said, yeah, I studied biology and then I had this banking job. How did you straddle, working with the biological world and then working with the sterile world of finance? How did you get that job?
Yeah, well, the way I got the job was I was privately already investing my money. It wasn't a lot of money, but like the money I had back at the time into the markets. I was exploring this whole world for me. So I started 1999. I was doing great, and at the same time, it was just the year before the huge .com bubble exploded. And so for me, this was the first learning. I was like, okay, I was getting greedy, it was like, wow, everything's going up like 100%, 200%. And then suddenly everything broke down. So for me, the first learning was this isn't really about, it has nothing to do with sustainability, even in the economical sense. So I started rethinking this whole greediness. I was even, even I was feeling this, in the first moment because everything's going up, etc. So I started thinking, what are these assets behind it? How can I bring all this ethical stuff I'm learning in the university? Like ecology is all about sustainability, comes from forestry. It's about future generations, and how can I combine it with the financial markets? At first, I was really keen on working in the banking business because it was exciting, it was new. And then at the same time, I saw that it can go downwards and it isn't really helping people. So I started thinking, how can I really combine this? Because actually the 10 CEOs in the world of the biggest asset management companies control over 30% of the assets worldwide. So actually you would need to talk to maybe 10 people and try to convince them, and you would already have 30% of the job done.
Yeah.
But you won't achieve it. That's the problem, because from 10 CEOs, maybe one of them will do it. Yeah. So that's the sad part of the story. But we said, in the meantime, we need to enable everyone to make well-informed investment decisions. And by the way, in Austria, 50%, half of private consumers want to invest more sustainably, but only 16% are investing sustainably. So there's a large gap, 34%. We call it a market failure. And in Germany, it's even worse. It's like also 40 to 50% who want to invest sustainably, but only 5%. So what we said is, we have all this data, and we have the possibility to translate it into a really easy form that everyone understands, that everyone can use in a customer journey, in a user experience that everyone can relate to. So what we did was we got some funding, public funding, and put in some of our cash flow and built a minimum viable product called CLEANVEST.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, left side, you have 9 criteria you can select. So it's like, I don't want weapons, I don't want coal, I don't want child labor, for instance. And on the right side, you have all the funds at first, and when you start setting your filters, like 2 or 3 clicks, you get a short list.
Yeah.
And in the short list, you see the sustainability score and what money these funds were making the last few years. And then you can like shuffle around. You can say which are the funds who made the most money, or do you want the most sustainable ones on top? Or then, if you're interested in details, of course, you click on it, it opens, and you see all these details. The end user gets a tool where he can actually have the same insight as the big companies that are paying us money for the analysis, because the end user isn't paying any money, of course. Yeah, this is completely for free. But this is the beauty of the tool. For instance, I'm a father of 3. I don't like child labor, or I'm trying to work against it, and I absolutely hate fossil fuels and the fossil sector. So, obviously, I go to no oil and gas, no coal.
Mm-hmm.
And no child labor, and of course no weapons, because I was a civil servant and not in the military for a reason. Yeah. And so suddenly I get from, let's say, 4,000 funds, maybe 100 or 50. Yeah.
And this really, it kind of builds on all of your strengths, right? What I'm hearing from your journey is that you look all of the ecology awareness that you got through your university degree as a biologist, coupled with your interest in the financial markets and the banking sector, seeing the power that's available there to shape our world, and plus kind of your creativity to act as kind of a go-between with one leg in each sector there. I think that kind of sums up for me your journey. What would you say to somebody that kind of feels like they have they have 2 legs to stand on, but they've mainly been using the one side? How did you go about really using the other leg that you didn't have any education really as in finance, but you ended up doing this? What kind of advice would you give to people that are in that situation?
I think my main advice would be, and why it worked for me, because I am somewhat of a strange person in the biological world. The biologist thinks I'm a maybe economist. Yeah, and the economist think I'm maybe from an NGO. So I'm a bit diffuse, they would say in German, not very clear. But I think why it worked for me is because I always did what I really loved. So do what you love, and if what you love isn't necessarily abiding with any definition, then maybe start or try your own concept or definition of it. Combining 2 worlds and working interdisciplinary, is a beautiful thing, because you get the best of both worlds. So the beauty of this thing is in becoming an expert in a field that is maybe not defined yet. gives you the power to define it. So if if you love something, go for it. I mean, the first 3 or 4 years were really hard, building a business, lean, bootstrap, all these, no money at first, you have to get income streams first, get funding first, etc. It's really tough, but it's so much fun. It's so inspiring. It's so also exhausting, but at the same time, it gives you so much, energy. It's so much more fun than working for an organization or for an institution or for a company where you can't really relate to the vision.
Right. It's not really something that gets our hearts pounding in the mornings, when we're rolling out of bed and like, oh God, it's a hard day, right? If it doesn't make your heart sing, it's going to be some hard days.
I mean, of course, we earn money, etc., and we pay wages, etc. But I mean, of course, you're not going to make the money in a social enterprise, or at least for the time being, as you would in an oil and gas company, or I don't know, no matter which sector. Yeah. But at the same time, you see, I have employees. We're 11 people now, so I mean, they're still doing it. They could earn maybe 20-30% more across the street, or 50% more in a large corporation. I mean, apparently we're giving them something more than the pure check you would be getting somewhere else. It's some kind of North Star, or whatever you want to call it, where I'm working towards, and it has to be a big plan. Huh? If it's too small, it's hard to motivate. But if you say you want to change the investment behavior of potentially a lot of people on this earth, then you have a big mission in front of you.
We're almost out of time. I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about this awesome journey that you've been on of going from being a biologist and interested in building ecosystems and learning about ecosystems, and then following your passion for the banking world, and then making something that has the potential to revolutionize how we spend our money. So thank you so much for coming on here.
Pleasure. Great pleasure for me. Thanks, Nas. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everybody out there that's listening, I hope you enjoyed this interview. We're going to be doing a lot more of those in the new year. And if you liked it, or if something stood out to you, please put a comment or a like on this video. It brings out the content to more people. And if you haven't already, go check out the 10,000 Changemakers, because there's a lot of people just like you that want to find a meaningful path that pays well. And we've got tons of free resources in there. I'm in there every week doing live trainings, and we run challenges, and it is a good time. There's so many good people in there. So do check that out if you haven't already. And yeah, I think that's about it for tonight. All right, have a great day, everybody, and I will see you on the next interview.